Hi everyone. I'm going to be making a LapBook along with Lisa Conway from Lisa My Eclectic Life, and I will put a link to her beginning video down in my description box. And each time I do a video, it will be the same situation. I'll make sure to put a link to Lisa's video in the box. Lisa is making a LapBook using 3 hardbound book covers. I chose, they don't have anything on the cover. Oh, that's interesting. You can see the titles on the spines. Lisa is using 3 books. Let's put this back. I am only using 2. I didn't want my book quite the same as hers, so I'm using 2 hardbound books that have the same height. Now, these 2 books are not the same depth, and that was fine with me. I was kind of excited about having the difference so that both sides are not exactly the same. So now, this first video is going to be about reinforcing the spines, getting the text blocks taken out of the books, reinforcing the spines, and then adding this single spine in between the 2 books so that I have this. Okay? Now, it takes a lot of work and time. Let me see if I can get you a better picture of this spine. To get this spine work done, but it is important. You want the folds of your spine to be very sturdy so that they hold up over time. So take your time. Do this step. You can use Tyvek like I have used, paper, fabric, whatever you want to put in this area. Another thing about these videos is that since I'm working along with Lisa, these videos are going to be, they're going to take me a little bit more to edit because I'm not used to doing voiceovers. So please excuse the voiceover for the rest of the video, and I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that this gives you an interesting look at a difference between what Lisa and I are doing, but how much it is the same. The steps are all the same no matter how you do a LapBook. So, okay guys, I'll see you in a minute with the work on the spines. Alrighty, so what I'm doing here is getting my 2 books ready to work with. Both of these books were from library book sale or someplace like that. They're both hardcover. They both have sewn-in bindings. They are the same length and width. They are not the same thickness, which is fine with me. Each book that you take apart is a little bit different. This one already had a pretty thick, heavy piece in the spine, and the text block was actually glued to part of it. So I had to not only cut it loose, which is what you're seeing here, but also in a minute you'll see I have to pry it up. I'm using a very sharp X-Acto knife. It's very pointy and it's down in there. But do be careful because you don't want to cut through the fibers of your spine. You want to cut through the paper that's holding your text block in. Oh, that was just a little plastic thing I knew I was going to need to get out of there. So, and there on this particular book, there's also sort of a fiber. It's not really cheesecloth. It's almost like the stuff they use on drywall, and so it took a little bit to get it loose. Sorry about that. I guess I needed to tell Lisa something. As I said, I'm watching Lisa's live stream while I'm making this video, so every once in a while I need to tell somebody something. Both books have to be treated the same way. They both have to have their innards taken out. This does give you a lot of wonderful pages to do other things with down the road. One of these books is older than the other, and it was a kid's book, so it has some really nice illustrations in it. I'll be using them in something different down the road. Now, this book, being that there's a bigger text block in it, is interesting because it does not have the support in the spine that the other one had. You still have to take out and very carefully cut off the text block so that it comes loose from the pages. No, the text block comes loose from the book boards that are holding it in. Sorry. As I said, you want to be careful doing this. You don't want to hurt your spine. You don't want to hurt your book or yourself. Now, the outside edges of those papers just was very rough, and I felt like it was going to restrict the movement, and it just needed cleaned up. This one needs cleaned up as well, but as you can see, down the center of that spine, there's already a heavy tagboard piece. I ended up not having to reinforce that spine with any extra tagboard. And here I'm just measuring because I know I need to cut tagboard pieces. And what you want to do is your tagboard that you're going to put down the center of your reinforced spine needs to have room on each side of it, roughly 3/8 of an inch or so that the front and back covers can bend. That joint has to have enough flexibility that it will bend. So every book's a little different. You need to measure your book. And this is just a heavy sheet of tagboard, or it's heavier than cardstock. It actually was the back of a paper pad. And I found out my little paper cutter doesn't like to cut it. I had to end up flipping it over and cutting from both sides, which was fine. Now, because that one book had no tagboard in the spine at all, I ended up using 2 layers down the center of it. The other book was fine all on its own. That's where I decided that that one is plenty sturdy enough. I was good with it. And here's where I'm deciding how big to make the back spine, the spine that I attach both of the books to. I want it the width of the 2 books plus about a 1/2 inch or so. So see, there's going to be a gap in the middle. Not only is this to allow me to put lots of stuff in it, but it also gives me room to add another little journal in the middle if I want. The pockets and flips in a LapBook are what's what makes it fun, and therefore we want lots of room to put them in. And here's where I'm going to cut that back spine. And I decide that it needs to be 3 layers thick. I just really wanted it sturdy enough to support everything that it's going to have going on. And now's the time to make that happen. You can't really add to it later. So I cut 3 pieces exactly the same size. It was really interesting the fact that my tag board was the right size, the right height, the right. I never had to cut, but there's the one cut to make each one right. So see, I decided two layers isn't enough. I need 3. I know this video is awfully long. I will tell you that I've already reduced more than half of it. It was almost 2 hours worth of video, and it's, I think, down to 45 minutes. So, like I said, this particular part of making a lapbook does take some time, but you'll be much happier if you go ahead and get these things done right now. Now, I decided to go ahead and use the same glue Lisa uses. She loves this art glitter glue. I haven't had it that long, but I will tell you, I did like how quickly it set up and seems to be very sturdy glue. That little applicator is one of my biggest favorites about the glue. See, you want to put that spine piece right down the middle so that you have your flexible ditches. I guess that's what you would call them, ditches. I think they call them gutters, but I'm not going to tell you that for sure. I'm sure there's a technical name for the foldy piece of a book and on its spine. It's probably gutter, but I'm not going to tell you for sure. And here I'm just holding it in place till it sort of sits up. Now what I'm going to do here is, I'm afraid that I might have a little glue everywhere, and what I'm going to do is I lay it on the floor, and I have a gigantic heavy book that I just put on top of it to help to hold that spine in place while it dries. And by heavy book, I'll show it to you later in this video. It is a monster. And I keep it set right beside me because it's got great paper in it for pages. I'm just gluing the 3 pieces of the back spine together. The longer these things sit under weight, the more likely they are to adhere to one another real well. So I'm just getting this spine prepared for later. Yep, see, I decided I had to really squeeze the bottle. I'm starting, believe it or not, I used a lot of this glue. I decide, nope, it doesn't need anything. Now, this is Tyvek. Um, they make shipping envelopes out of it. I happen to have a roll. They actually wrap houses with it. It's a vapor um, wind barrier that they use on houses. I have a roll of it that I purchased at the like Home Depot, and I just cut a chunk off the roll. I use it to support spines and anything that I know that needs to be bendable, because it really holds up real well. Now, if you don't have Tyvek, there are other things you can use. You can use fabric in there. You can use just a good quality paper in there. It is not necessary to use the Tyvek, but I have it. I like to use it, and therefore that's what I use. By the way, I will put a link to the art glitter glue down in my description box. The little metal tip that's on that does not come with it, but it really makes a difference in how that glue goes down. Now, when you go to put the Tyvek into support that spine, you want to start on one side, as I did, and work yourself into a ditch. Do not put glue everywhere. This takes a while, and you're going to find out that probably 90% of this video is me working on those ditches. It takes a lot of finagling to make sure that they're in there really good. And like I said, this is the basis of the construction for your book. If you work at it and get it in there real well, you'll find that your book goes together so much more neatly and smoothly. So I did one on the back page. Now I'm getting ready to put it actually on the spine, and then down the ditch, the second ditch. So you kind of work this thing in about 3 stages. I did not put it on the back book cover because I'm not ready to do the back book cover. We got to just get it to go in that ditch, stay in that ditch, and then work on the next ditch. And I squished glue out both ends. I just grabbed a baby wipe and cleaned it up. For one, the Tyvek won't be affected by the baby wipe, and it's just easier if it's cleaned up and doesn't get all over me. And you notice I'm using a bone folder and just really working that Tyvek down into the ditches. Now that is one thing I'll say about using fabric or paper. With fabric, you won't find it as hard to get your ditch to work into there because the fabric will stretch a little bit. This Tyvek does not do that, so therefore anything you're doing with it's going to be a little bit more difficult to make it bend. Here I'm just gluing it to the back book cover. And again, I'm working it and making sure it stays in there. What was I going to say? Oh, paper. With paper, if you're using paper for this step, do be careful that you don't tear it, pushing it down into that ditch. I would probably use, if I didn't have the Tyvek, I would probably use fabric over paper. We're getting ready to weight that one down. You can see here, I pulled it back, and I'm going to do this second one. My Tyvek wasn't straight. Since I'm going to repeat a process, I think what I'm going to do here is try to speed up the next part of the video just a little bit. Yep, watch how fast I can get this second one done. Zip, zip, zip. Lots of glue. You want to use enough glue to make that Tyvek stay in there. That's another thing, Tyvek sticks, but not to everything. So you want to make sure it's a glue that the Tyvek will stick to. And our glitter glue is. It will also, tacky glue works, but the art glitter glue really works well. I was very impressed with the art glitter glue. And like I said, there will be a link, an Amazon link for it down in the bottom in the description box when I post this video. Every so often you see me wiping up the little glue that squirts out because I've gotten too much and squirted it out on the table. And you notice I didn't go for lack of glue. I put plenty in there. I'd rather wipe up a little bit on the ends than to have it not stick. Oh goody, last step on this second book. Once again, I put that under some weight. And here is my spine that has been underneath my big heavy book, and I had to get another piece of Tyvek because for this one you're going to want a nice wide piece. It's got to attach to both of your books, plus your spine has to go down the middle. And you're going to want two pieces because you're going to want one for the outside and one for the inside. And I decided I need to straighten it up, and my cutter wasn't really cutting real well, so I decided just to draw a line and cut it with scissors. I wanted it straight, but I didn't need it so perfect that it was going to make me crazy. I just wanted it straight on the edges. And as I said, I'm going to need a second piece, so I decided to go ahead and straighten that piece up too. Now, why does it matter if you're using it straight or not? Partially because there is a thickness there. when I go to finish the inside of the book cover, that thickness is going to show up underneath whatever I put on the book cover. It's going to leave a little tiny ridge, and I didn't want the little tiny ridge to be real crooked. You can't tear Tyvek. Now that book spine is 3 thicknesses of tagboard, and what we're going to do is just glue it down to the back. Once again, lots and lots of glue. And I guess I could have spread it around with my finger, but it seemed to spread around just fine when you start rubbing on the cardboard and making it squash out everywhere. Oops. Okay, next step is to put the books onto that piece of Tyvek. And you want to leave a gap. And I left a gap of about 3/8 of an inch because I have a thickness in the secondary spine, and I have the thickness of the book cover, and they both have to be able to fold into that gap. And what I'm doing is I'm cheating, and I'm using the back end of my X-Acto knife blade as a measurement by being able to sit it down between the tag board and the book cover and making sure that it fits exactly the same way in both places. It just worked as a guide, a separator, a ruler kind of thing. And you see that one's nicely attached. And now we're going to attach the other book to the other side, doing the exact same thing, leaving a gap in between of about 3/8 of an inch. Down goes the second book cover. And once again, I'm using the back end of my X-Acto blade to make sure I've positioned it out pretty much the same distance. I know one of the reasons Lisa likes this glue is because it seems to grab hold and stay held pretty well, pretty quickly. I was very pleased with that part of it. You don't have to hold it for a really long time to make sure that it's going to stay. Okay, now then, we have to put a piece on the inside, and I'm going to do it just like we did the last 2 book spines. I'm going to do one side of it. I'm going to do down the gut. Oh, I guess I decided to put it in the middle because it was such a big piece. But I'm going to put the middle in, then I'm going to do the gutter, then I'm going to do the sides. You don't want to put glue all over everywhere at one time. That you just don't want to do. This takes time, so you don't want to rush trying to get it stuck down and everything else. Once you put it on there, you'll make sure it's adhered real well. This is where I go picking it up. Now I'm going to put it in the ditch. And I made sure to put a fair amount of glue in that ditch because I'm having to stick Tyvek to Tyvek at that spot. It needed an attitude adjustment up there. That top little corner of the book cover, I think, is bent just a little bit, so the gutter didn't want to go in just perfect. It took a little bit of attitude adjusting. Okay, now that we've got the gutter glued, we're going to work on getting that flap on this side. Now what I do is I usually put glue on the book board, but you notice I went back and put glue right along the edge of the Tyvek or paper. I do that so that I don't have to have glue everywhere. The I can't judge exactly where the Tyvek's going to come to, so by putting it along the outer edge of the Tyvek, it just looks. It's about being neat with it. It's about not having glue everywhere. And there I ran my finger against the Tyvek strip that's on the right, and it took a little chunk of skin off. I was very amazed at how quickly I got a paper cut. Now I turned it around because it's easier for me to work on the right hand side of whatever it is I'm doing. So I just turned the whole book around and I'm going to do the other flap. But first I'm going to do the gutter just like I have been doing. When we get the book where it is actually put together, before we try to cover it, we're going to paint it. The book covers I have are two different colors. The Tyvek's got some color in it. The paper and the Tyvek don't match. The Tyvek on the outside of the book covers is white and they're dark. So by painting the whole thing one color, it will make the covering of the book much easier. So that is my plan, is to make sure to get it all nice and dry. And then I'm going to go in and paint the outside and paint the inside. Well, I may not paint the inside on the downstairs. I'll have to think about that. And now I'm finishing up. But you want it to be consistent when you start laying down your cover pieces. You don't want to have a whole lot of different contrasts underneath there in case your cover lets things show through. Just clean it up. I am going to put this under some weight. I think it's, yeah, there's my giant book. That book is about 4 inches deep. Okay, now then, I realized that Lisa had wrapped her Tyvek all the way around. Not only that, the gutters on the big piece of the spine just seemed to me like they were not very well, they just didn't have a lot of body to them. There was just 2 sheets of Tyvek in that center section. I'm not worried about where the books have spines, but I'm worried about that center section of the spine that I created. So what I decided to do is make a nice long piece, and on the outside, put it on the outside, and then in a few minutes you'll see that I'm going to wrap from the outside to the inside some of this Tyvek to make it a little stronger and give it just a little bit of attitude. Okay, so we're going to go for the outside center of the Tyvek piece. And then I realized that the gutter is actually on the inside. It's not on the outside, so I decided it would be fine if I just laid it down flat. Just get it down real well. I grabbed a card, like a credit card, or that happens to be an advertising card, and covered it up with that. This is the point where they wrap around to the other side. Now on the gutter area, I cut out like a little 1/4 of an inch piece, and I don't mean cut out, I just cut down. I just cut down to the edge of the book, and then these pieces are going to be folded over the top edge and into the book. It just gives the book a cleaner, nicer, more finished look to it. So you fold it up, make the folds nice and neat. Push those 2 little pieces down in the spine. Paying attention to the details is what this is. It can be very frustrating if down the road these pieces start to come apart. So you really want to pay attention to the detail and get it down good. Let it dry good. Don't decide to paint it while it's still wet. And here I have to do this to the other side. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. Okay, we are about to the end of this video, and like I said, after this video is over and before next week, um, I will be trying to get mine painted just so that I'm at the same step as Lisa is. I think I'm going to do a similar kind of cover just because I want to sort of play along with her. Even though I'm doing my book different, I want it to be similar to hers. So I will be doing sort of a faux leather thing, but with a brown paper back. I am going to paint this book before that time so that I'm ready to do the cover of everything. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to be playing along with Lisa. She does a live on Monday nights at 7 Central. on Lisa My Eclectic Life, and there will be a link in the video description.